All right, I'd like to call this meeting of Planning Board of Village of Cold Spring to order. We only have one item on the agenda today, but would anyone like to add or modify the agenda? Nope. We have Hillary joining us online, on this number. Okay, so I guess first, thank Officer Burke for assisting on keeping us compliant with the fire code and otherwise safe. So why are we here? The village board had a public hearing on the DGEIS from for the field trail. The HHFT had a few public hearings. Why does the planning board care to have one? Is this entirely duplicative? Are we just here to say the same things to each other over and over again? I say no. The purpose of the planning board is different than the purpose of the village board, and it's different than the purpose of the developer. And what this board in particular is deeply concerned with is the details of what is being done, how it's being done, and how those details in particular impact the village. So that's really important because it should inform any comments that we hear from all of you today, because that help us understand things we should be thinking about in terms of the details of implementation, what we should be worried about, what we should be providing comment about, what we should be providing feedback about. And as a result, providing only broad support or detraction is not that useful to us. Something to keep in mind as you're thinking about your own comments. You can be excited about this project as a whole and have concerns about the details of its execution. You can be against the project as a whole, but find some implementation choices more palatable than others. These are the details that matter to us here, and we will consider them when composing our comments on the DGEIS. So that's the first thing for everyone to keep in mind. The second, for the avoidance of doubt, this planning board does not have any approval authority here. It's a bit unusual considering the impact the project could have on the village, but in this instance, we are only tasked with providing comment and question to HHFT and state partners. So just understanding what the limit of our role and power is here. Third, the document here, this very large printout that's here on the table in front of us, is the only thing under consideration today. I want everyone to think about what that means, because for a project that's this large with this much history, it's easy to get pulled out of the literal text of what's here in front of us into years of marketing, hearsay, rumor, past promise. So I want everyone to make sure that your comments relate very specifically to the content that's in the DGEIS, because those are the ones that are being relevant for our comment, the state parks. And finally, some process notes. So we have a sign-in sheet for anyone who is here in the room and would like to speak. And Abigail will be grabbing names of folks who are on Zoom who would like to speak as they volunteer. We're going to try to have a hard limit of 9:30 p.m. tonight, so no one has to stay up too late. And we're gonna have a priority order of speaker. This is going to be something that is common, but something that everyone should be aware of. So we're going to prioritize villagers here in person, then villagers online, village business owners here in person, and village business owners online, and then non-villagers, including those speaking on behalf of organizations in person and then online. So you're here speaking not as a private citizen, but on behalf of an organization, please let us know. If you have an affiliation, as a courtesy, just let us know so that we can appropriately contextualize your remark. Each speaker will be allocated a maximum of 3 minutes to speak. I believe we should have a timer floating around somewhere. Please respect this, just because we're trying to get through everyone and hear as much diversity of comment as possible. When you speak, give your name and address, and As a reminder, all comments are to be addressed to the board, not to individuals in the room. And all written comment will be considered. So if you don't feel like you've had enough time in 3 minutes, or weren't able to speak tonight for whatever reason, you can always email us, email the village clerk, or drop off a physical copy. It will get to us. We will read it. We will incorporate it into our thinking. Finally, we are here primarily to listen. The board is not obligated to respond to any public comment unless it's procedural in nature. Mostly we're just here to learn how everyone has been thinking about this proposal. So with that, would someone like to make a motion to open the public hearing?
I make a motion to open the public hearing for discussion on the Fjord Trail DGEIS.
I will second that.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All right. Okay. What's our sign-in sheet? Would any other members like to make comment before we jump into?
Did you comment on what we're generating out of all of this?
I alluded to it, but I can be more explicit. So one of the artifacts that this board is producing is a written comment and a collection of questions for state parks and HSFP to respond to. And that I think they're we're one of, because we're listed as one of the forget the actual term, Jonathan will remember, but we're an interested party or an involved party. What is it?
Interested agency.
Interested agency, yeah. That those comments and questions will be engaged with by HSFP. So this is in service of making sure that we're thinking through all the things that we should be thinking through when it comes to the detail. All right. We'll start making our way through village residents here in the room. Lynn Miller.
Do you want me?
Yeah, if you don't mind coming up.
Sure. Hi, I'm Lynn Miller. I'm a village resident. I live at 30 Bank Street, kind of on the very edge of the village. And our property also abuts property owned by and managed by Scenic Hudson, which the Foundry Brook goes down to, the West Point behind our house goes down. And we often walk down in the West Point Foundry Preserve, and we love it. We love it down there. It's such an improvement over what it was when we first moved here over 20 years ago. I just want to say that I think we can trust Scenic Hudson and New York State Parks to do a good job on this thing. The fjord, I've seen development of riverside trails in several other places I've lived. One is Chapel Hill, North Carolina, where I grew up, and also another town about 10 miles away where my daughter lives called Hillsborough. Both of these have Riverwalk greenways that were protested significantly before they were built, and then once built, absolutely loved by everyone who lives there. So what's important to me, particularly in regards to the environmental impact of the Fjord Trail, it's not just the fish and the plants and the birds that live in the river, which is a wonderful thing. It's an important thing that we need to preserve. And I believe from what I've gathered in here that they're going to be particularly sensitive to that. But the thing is, that we need to remember is that this space that we're discussing has always been an industrial space. It was polluted monstrously for years and years and years. My father used to work for the EPA and was instrumental in helping to clean up rivers and forests and all kinds of places all over the country. So I think it's a mistake to make a big deal over this very small stretch between Cold Spring and Dockside and Little Stony Point, as far as it being dangerous to the natural habitat. The river is recovering. I just read an article today about how the skillet fish is coming back. And the skillet fish only live where oysters live. And so oysters are coming back to the Hudson River. So are skillet fish. These things haven't been seen in 50 years. So they're coming back. And I believe from reading, I haven't read the entire thing, but from what I have read, I believe that Scenic Hudson and New York State Parks and the other entities that are behind building the Fjord Trail are being particularly sensitive to the environmental impacts. And yes, there will be some big environmental impacts during its construction. And it'll have impact on us, the environment for the residents of the village during its construction. Once it's constructed, and we're at the very tail end of this, which I'm disappointed to say. Once it's constructed, I would say, and venture to say that everyone in this room will be using it. Everybody will love it. Thank you for listening.
Thank you. Is there anybody who's come in later that would like to sign up and speak? You can say that. I'll just pass it around to anybody who's.
Why don't you give Jesse the next name so we can get the next person going?
Rebecca, are you, no, not speaking? Okay. Just you say you're here. Okay, great. Thank you. David Watson. David Watson.
Thank you. I'm here because I think this is a wonderful project. And I just want to express my gratitude to Scenic Hudson and to the people working on it. But a few comments. I have restored, and my wife have restored, William Campbell's house, which is a national landmark, from basically a ruin to a museum. Now, we run a business out of that called the West Point Foundry Bed and Breakfast, which allows people to experience the world of William Campbell. Now, apropos of the last speaker, William Campbell and his brother Gouverneur are largely responsible for the initial horrific pollution of the Hudson River. Not only did they have the West Point Foundry, which was in the 1840s and 50s, the largest factory in the United States, they also were, with Samuel Sloan, instrumental in bringing a railway line up to Cold Spring and beyond. So I can't say that our house is a proud reflection of the wonderful project that has been, maybe it will mitigate some of it. However, it will be very wonderful for me because my 81-year-old legs, who played far too much rugby, are struggling to get up and down the breakneck ridges, particularly going down. I think, going down is worse than going up. And I would love to commute with the river, biking or walking along a trail in which I can spare my knees somewhat. So I am really enthusiastically in support of this, but I do have a couple of other comments. I would just like to make sure that there is enough parking, enough bathrooms. And the other comment I have is that I've pushed this a few times to mitigate some of the crowding, which I think will actually be less because I think people, rather than coming into the village, will go onto the trail because it looks from the projections that this is going to have a lot of space for people to fan out. So what I'm suggesting, and have suggested several times, is that the village institutes a no vehicle, a pedestrian only zone on the weekends during the season from May through October. And I think that together with the trail will make this a truly iconic national place for people to come. So I'm not gonna say any more than I'm just love the idea of the project. Hopefully it finishes in time for me to enjoy it. And Thank you very much for the time to speak.
Thank you.
Thank you, David. Can I get the next name off that list, please? Who's the next name on the list?
Yeah, thanks.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, hi, it's Josiah Garrison. I have two quick sort of comments slash questions. I know you mentioned that, so I live actually on West Street, which is right along the water in the Lower Village. I know that we said that what comes out of this meeting is maybe just a letter or some recommendations or some comments sort of aggregated from the village. I'm curious how the decision actually gets made and who makes it. Is it the private organization? Is it the state? Like, I know that I'm a little bit late, so that there's probably been so many of these meetings and various forums and various feedback. So I guess I'm curious, like how does it actually move forward? And what would the timeline be? And who has the decision-making ability? That would be my first one. The second one would be, in principle, I'm in support of the trail. I think it's great. I think talking about implementation, like specifically how it connects from Little Stony to the village. I don't know if it's still on the table, that maybe there would be alternate routes. As it is, living in the lower village, Dockside Park, it's like my front yard. So Dockside Park is kind of like almost like a cul-de-sac, and we're talking about turning it right into a thoroughfare, so to speak, for pedestrians. So I'm wondering if that is still in negotiation. Maybe I should have read a little bit closer, but yeah, in principle, I sort of support everything about it. It's just connecting it from Dockside and turning that into it versus maybe potentially some other route to, how the village itself connects to Little Stony. I think that's a key thing, and that's a kind of externality that definitely affects. I mean, everyone's happy to we need more parking, and then should we have the parking lot in my backyard, my neighbor's backyard? I think this is like the thing that we're talking about, So that's would be my comment and questions. Thank you.
Josiah, I want to answer those in detail. They're very big blocks.
Yeah.
Would you be satisfied if you and I sat and had a coffee?
Sure, great.
It's a tree maybe tomorrow or any day next week? Is that cool?
Next week. Great.
Does that work for you?
Yeah, perfect.
Right. I just want to make sure that that's satisfying because they're really great questions, but they're big chunks and
Right.
some of them are in there and some of them are not. So
Right.
we'd be getting off topic.
Okay. Yeah. So it was more like comment / question. So
Yeah.
yeah, that's my 2 cents anyway.
Okay, great.
Great. Thanks.
But a really good question.
Thanks.
Thank you.
All right, Peter, Henderson? Great.
Thanks for framing your intro the way you did. That was really excellent. Thank you. Peter Henderson, 11 Marion Ave. And I will try and give you 5 reasons, very specific reasons why it would have a significant adverse impact on the village. One is the impact on traffic, which they acknowledge, but I believe they're understating the impact because they based their analysis on a scoping document from 2017. The scope of the preferred route changed since then, so they have not analyzed the impact of traffic trying to make its way directly to the trail starting point at Dockside. We know people try to do that. And also, I think I consider the mitigation measures they offer for traffic quite unacceptable in terms of squeezing in a turn lane at the light, removing parking spaces, forget what the other 2 were, but they are just not acceptable, right? Second, noise impacts during construction. Now, if construction was just a few weeks, then we could understand that. It's going to be 6 years. Of that, 5 will be spent hammering piles between Dockside and Little Stony Point. If you add up the numbers, it will be spread out, but cumulatively, it will be more than 1,000 hours of hammering. They're understating the noise levels. They say 90 decibels. You check any authoritative source on noise levels that you can expect from impact hammering of steel piles, and it's much more in the order of 110 decibels. The noise is going to be many times louder, and it's going to interfere with many more people over a much larger area. 3, loss of access to Dockside for 6 years. Now, it's not that we can't go there, it's just that our access will be limited. But who wants to go to a noisy construction site? It's denying residents a space that we value for our mental health and well-being. It's a place to go and experience the beauty and the peace of the environment and to decompress. It would be during construction, it would, nobody would want to go there. Once built, it would be again transformed into a major thoroughfare, or what they call, which brings me to my fourth point, they have called this, their goal is to make this a signature destination of national significance. This would have a significant impact on community character. Go back to the comprehensive plan. There's a statement in there that says we want to keep Cold Spring the way it is as much as possible. Turning Cold Spring into a signature destination of national significance is not keeping Cold Spring the way it is as much as possible. And finally, there's an impact on housing. It does acknowledge, the DGEIS acknowledges there would be an increased demand for short-term and vacation rentals. That takes residential units off the market. We already have an affordable housing crisis here, where young people who grew up here can no longer afford to live here and they're forced out. So 5 points, thanks.
Thank you.
Paul Thompson.
Okay, Paul Thompson. I live 8 New Street, so just across the road from the boat club and just around the corner from Dockside Park. And I've been living in the village with my wife for the last 4 years, and I've been closely following the development of this project. I've not read all this thing. Yeah, there's 709 pages. We're all very busy. I've glanced through bits and pieces. So what I'm going to give you is some high-level sort of comments in relation to that. I set up around about sort of a year and a bit ago, after the shindig at Haldane School. I think it was May in 2024. With a couple of other village residents, we set up something called Phillipstown Advocates for Trails, and we've got about 200 people on a mailing list, and we keep ourselves informed of the development, and we're possibly responsible for some of the signage that you can see around the village, which is pro-trail. Generally speaking, the 200 members are supportive of the trail. I wouldn't say they're agreeable with each other.
Are you speaking on behalf of the
I'm not.
organization? Okay.
These are personal comments. I'm just saying that this group are generally supportive of the trail, but I can't be speaking for all of them. They may have in detail differences of opinion, just as I guess with Protect Highlands as well. In terms of process, I think what does concern me is the fact that the main local user of this trail are the young people of the village. And some of these kids haven't even been born yet, but the ones that are, and the ones that are at school, I'm concerned that their views are not being captured. Sure, their parents are telling them what they should be thinking about the trail, but I think it would be nice to hear from the local students what they feel about this thing, because they're going to be the primary user. You know, I'm just like David. I'm not quite as old as David. I'm just a few years behind you, mate. But I'm going to be in that cemetery, you know, 10, 20 years from now. But there's going to be people that are on the streets of this village at Haldane School at the moment. They're going to be using this trail for the next 50, 60 years. And I can tell you, I'm pretty certain that if you ask them, they would be for this trail. They might also have other views on whether or not they can use TikTok, and they'll perhaps be more interested in that conversation. But I do feel, I suspect strongly that they will be very supportive of this trail. We're not hearing them. A few, you know, I'm like Lynn. I think that the organisation that is in charge of this project, I have confidence that they'll do a good job. There's going to be some bumps on the road. There's going to be some upheaval. There's going to be, you know, traffic at peak weekends that is, you know, we're not going to accommodate. But I think ultimately we'll get through it, and we'll have a great asset for all of us to use. I just hope one day everybody in the room feels the same about it as I do. Thank you very much.
Thanks. All right. Edward Corelli?
Yes.
You get the last name right?
Yes, you did.
Good.
Thank you. I'm Edward Corelli. I live at 1 Market Street in the Lower Village. And my comments are, I have a couple of comments and then one observation. It really just centers around, it's like I've seen a number, I'm a lifetime New Yorker, from Manhattan, Brooklyn, it's like I live in every borough. And I've seen a number of these projects, it's like come up to, for development. And they're all met with skepticism and doubt, it's like, and somehow they've all survived, they've been created, it's like, and they've all grown to their own level of excellence, and we are the better for it now. It's like 30, 40 years ago, the Hudson River, as someone mentioned, was a dump. No one would swim in it, stick their foot in it. Now people are crabbing, people are fishing, people are, using it for recreation, and it's wonderful. This project, I believe, is inevitable. It is going to happen, whether it happens now or whether it happens 20 years from now. It is going to happen. What I'd like to, say is that, what we need is direction at the, direction with passage. And have you received some information from Rebecca Ramirez, on the wayfinding and direction and markers and trail markers and stuff like that. That's what's going to guide people. A lot of us are concerned about the flow, the tremendous impact of the flow of people. In the position where I am, where I live, on a Market Street between Market and Main, it's right through the tunnel.
Rincon.
Above El Rincon.
Yes, above Rincon, yeah. And one thing that I always find myself doing on the weekends is people are running to the train. They don't know where the train is. They come through the tunnel rather than make the little right to the platform. They run two streets up. It's like when people get off the train, they're milling around. No one knows where to go. It's like, and so they either go to Dockside Park to nowhere, or they go through the tunnel when they go up Main Street. Once this project is underway, so we're gonna need significant signage, because people who come here to hike will hike. They will, with the proper signage, they will find their way through Dockside Park, to the trails, and those people who come up to enjoy the town itself, it's like the quaintness of the town, they'll find their way to the Main Street. It's like, so we need direction, we need management and passage and flow. So thank you so much.
Thank you, sir.
John Erickson.
Hello.
I'm John Erickson. I live at 32 West Street in the Lower Village. Thanks for taking the time to hold this public hearing tonight. I am concerned that the DGEIS understates the extent to which visitors will be incentivized to seek out metered parking in the village of Cold Spring and the effective discount rate this will provide visitors, rather than to pay to park at parking lots operated by HHFT. The DGEIS assumes that cars parked in HHFT controlled lots will turn over every 4 hours. That's in table 3, chapter 3, L5. Coincidentally, this is the same maximum, this is the maximum amount of time allowed at parking meters operated by the village of Cold Spring. HHFT anticipates that once the fjord trail is fully open in 2033, HHFT will charge between $10 per car under their lowest price tier at non-peak hours, and up to $35 per car under their highest price tier during peak hours at HHFT controlled lots. That's from their request for proposals, which is not included in the DGEIS, but that they released last spring. Currently, the village of Cold Spring charges $2 per hour or $8 for 4 hours. The parking meter rate charged by the village is fixed and does not fluctuate based on demand. These two pricing systems for parking will be a recipe for disaster.
The HHFT, or the DGIS rather, states that up to 75% of visitors at the fjord trail are expected to arrive by car. The DGIS claims that the fjord trail will employ visitor management strategies, such as signage and a proprietary app, to direct visitors to HHFT-controlled parking lots. The success of this strategy hinges on voluntary compliance. It assumes that visitors arriving to the fjord trail by car will behave economically or rationally by willfully paying up to $35 to park instead of $8. It assumes that travel blogs and social media travel influencers won't promote parking in the village, and this is a potentially catastrophic assumption. And I just ask you to consider it when you're reading and reviewing the DGIS. Thanks.
Thank you. Stephanie.
Thank you for holding this. I'm Stephanie Skiptunis, and I am a resident of the village at 88 Fair Street. And I am here just to bring up a couple of items that I think should be considered, which is that Cold Spring really needs improved sidewalks. We need better infrastructure in general, not a new path that's adjacent to the village that doesn't really address our current issues with tourism. Sidewalks down 9D and Fair Street that all the way down to Little Stony Point would allow kids to walk from Haldane and get on the trail if it were to start and end at Little Stony Point. This seems like a really reasonable compromise to me. So many people have an issue with the dockside connector portion. Why can't we look for a new place to start and end the trail rather than flood the town with all of the hikers that are coming into the town, and we don't have the infrastructure in which to accommodate them. So that's what I wanted to bring up. I think that we have to look toward, no one talks about a compromise. And I think that that is a good compromise. The idea of starting and ending the trail at Little Stony Point, rather than going forward with the dockside connector portion, and thinking about improving the sidewalks so that the villagers can have a way to access the trail, rather than thinking about the best way to manage the tourists. And we're trying to attract millions of tourists here, but really let's think about what our villagers need. And so, thank you.
Thanks, Stephanie.
Andrew Hall, Fair Street. I don't really have anything profound to say tonight. Just a couple of points. It's probably a typo, but it's DGEIS, not DGEIS.
That was my typo.
We're here to make substantive comments on the DGEIS, right? Not whether we think it's a good idea or a bad idea.
Yeah.
And those are what you're going to take into consideration, not I'd like to ride my bike to Beacon.
Right.
Okay.
Right. You're welcome to comment that you would like to ride your bike to Beacon now. So don't let me stop.
Ride my bike in plenty of other places. I think one thing that's salutary and that really needs to be taken into consideration is that the DGEIS only analyzes the impacts of the trail within the park that it's creating. It doesn't actually take into consideration the village of Cold Spring. So I think that's salutary to bear in mind that this thing is happening, but Cold Spring isn't really being considered in terms of its overall impacts. Think of that in terms of visitation. I think around 2020, Amy Casala mentioned a figure of 480 million. It's ticked up to 600 million to 1.2 million. I don't see it stopping there. So I think people should really sit back and think, what would in excess of 2 million people, 1.2 million, maybe going up to 1.5, maybe it could go up to 2 million. Based on like steward counts at trailheads and so forth, I don't think the numbers we're receiving now and the estimates that we're receiving now are in any way reflective of what the coming wave is going to be. Other impacts on the village, traffic. There's parking being jammed in and squeezed in all up Route 9. I think it will be chaos in the village. We're talking about roundabouts, we're talking about maybe going down Fair Street, which is, Sue's been doing some research. It's not even as wide as Church Street or Cross Street. Those are wider streets. So I think there are engineering problems there. Think of the infrastructure impacts. We have a water main out right now. When you're thinking of all these extra people coming to the village, drinking water, flushing, toilets, drinking water, what's that going to do to the infrastructure? What strains is that going to put on the water plant? Another note, like there was the article recently in the Current where it showed a picture of the trail or a rendering of the trail. That didn't look 10 to 12 feet wide to me. Even in terms of the piling mechanisms and the piling vehicles that they're talking about using on the trail, they barely fit on the width of the trail that they say they're going to construct. So I think there are huge problems. The other last thing is, where's all the money coming from? I think this village, if they really want to go ahead with this, they should get the same deal that Parks is getting. $75 million up front for capital improvements, $5 million a year for the next 20 to 40 years for operational costs. That comes to the village for them to mitigate the impacts. Thank you. Thank you.
Hi, Susan Peel. We're coming up on 28 years living here in the village, and 25 of them have been on Fair Street at 2 different places. I just want to say, first of all, I'm really glad that you all are taking this seriously, even though you don't have authority over this. It's very, very important. I don't think that there's been a project this big since the close, or an effect on the village this big since the closing of the foundry. And that is what we're dealing with. And yet it isn't going before any of our boards, and I am appalled by that. I'm gonna give my comments to you in writing, so I truly thought this was your speaking to us tonight, not us speaking to you. So, but just a couple of things. I'm very concerned about the village's sovereignty, and I've brought this up in different places. I'll give you just an example here. The fjord trail in the DGEIS, they say that, oh, if there's a problem with Maine and people can't turn, or the traffic is backing up because of turning, well, we're just gonna take away the parking lanes and make them into turning lanes. Now, what gives them the authority to do that? Now, that might be coming from the state, but it's usurping our own authority over where we live. We've just had a crisis with parking where we have parking meters now, and we're trying to find, okay, well, where will people park when they don't use the meters? And they're gonna take lanes away from us. And before you know it, it'll be lane on the Main Street being taken away from us. When they talk about Fair Street, they talk about it as part of the fjord trail. What they say that visitors coming from the train to get to Washburn Trail are on the fjord trail when they cross Fair Street. So what does that mean? They're taking care of the operation, but what happens to the fjord trail or to the street itself? What happens to Fair Street? Right now, it's like torn up in various areas because of plumbing issues over the years. Who's gonna fix that when there are more trucks coming through? Why don't we have a say over that? So those are just a few things, just to give an idea, but the sovereignty is really a major issue. And then in terms of alternate routes, this is what I would want. If you have anything saying Fjord Trail begins in Cold Spring, you've got the promotion to be a problem coming at us. You've also got the physicality of it. We cannot have a trail going through Cold Spring. What we need are various routes to get people to other parts of the north on the trail, have it start somewhere else. Do not have it start here in Cold Spring. Thank you.
Thank you.
Dan Williams?
Close.
No.
Dar. Sorry. Sorry, Dar.
you know, I've been to hearing so many things, so I've written and amended so many things. I've heard so much feedback from fellow citizens about how they thought that the report was a little overly sunny in its projections of traffic. And I remember saying, oh, this is only going to last an extra 20 seconds here and 20 seconds there. And I knew in my heart that that wasn't necessarily what was going to happen. But I do have faith in the management of projects and the management of change and the management. I was studying Moab, Utah, that gets 1.5 million people in a town of 8,000 coming through. And somebody who's involved with sort of town planning, he said, it's very tough, but we manage change. And insofar as I have had experiences with Scenic Hudson, with Foundry Park, with New York Parks, traveling on all our trails here, with Scape, as a very fastidious and thoughtful agent, corporation, really, and also just with all the supporters of this project, I have faith in their management. I have faith that they're listening. I have faith that they are coming back and saying, we get it, that we really need to be more receptive to the input of people in this town. And so insofar as DGEIS is, and I'm sorry if I got that wrong.
You got it right.
Okay, I thought that they make it sound sort of sunny. They make this sound like it's just gonna be kind of like everything's gonna work out. We know all the bumps in the road. We live here. I live in the village and I see this and I hear about the decibels and you know, of all of the pounding. And this is not necessarily related to the DGIS. Existentially, I have an electric car and I charge it and I go into all sorts of big box stores and I just see an abundance of aggressive pushing of a world of products, and for all these people, young and old, all incomes of shoppers, and the only common denominator on all of these lights is that everyone looks pasty, and there seems to be a sort of a low vibration of overwhelm and all this consumption. I see the Fjord Trail with all of its challenges of the dockside entrance and the and decisions about the entrance as being part of how we are going to manage these large questions of how we are going to be as a town with so much culture, history, natural beauty, and great commerce, because we have a franchise restriction. That means that we have independent businesses. We have so much to offer. I have faith that these leading organizations can bring this to the world as a gift and something that really mitigates and benefit and profit to us all. But I don't know how to finish that sentence now that I've heard that. But some of the existential things that we face in a society where there's so much that's bought and sold beyond our control. Thank you.
Thank you, Dara. John, that Javier? Any guesses on that?
Civic, yeah.
I don't have any comments right now.
Okay,
I wanted to hear what you folks
cool.
had to say about it.
Thank you.
I have one question. Any of you folks that are on the planning board when Jack Goldstein was on? Did you know his concerns at all?
Yes.
Yes, significant.
But I have a general idea of his concerns.
That's all I want. With the proximity to being to New York, this whole project just supersedes our capacities. Basically.
Thank you.
Thanks, John.
Francis?
Yeah. I got to say, I am really tired of this whole project and of meetings. It seems to me I've grown old going to the meetings.
Oh, we are too.
And we have discussed everything except the deleterious effect on the mugwort along 9D. So I think the project managers have shown a willingness to amend to make this palatable. I think it's extremely important project for the future of children who are right now sort of nailed to screens inside, that they should be given the kind of access
to the out of doors that I had when I was a teenager using Harriman Park and all its trails. And no one ever told me, don't come up to New York and go into Harriman Trails Park. There's too many of you, don't come here. But in general, I'd like to support the boardwalk. First of all, because like one other gentleman said, I'm in my 80s, I'm arthritic. I can no longer run up Breakneck Ridge, even though it was a great pleasure to do so. I would like a level walkway. I would like a walkway that not only allows people who are handicapped to walk on it, but also mothers pushing strollers and toddlers. I think that the route over the water will be beautiful and attractive, and I can't see it being more objectionable than the boardwalk at the Audubon Marsh or any other nature center, the sanctuary that I've gone to. Despite the fact that marshes are very vulnerable, they usually manage to build boardwalks that allow people to walk onto the water. Also, Peekskill has a walk over the water, and I don't see that as that too obtrusive. People who want to modify the scheme to make it as modest as possible, I think could work on this boardwalk. It doesn't have to have high sides, just railings, and it doesn't have to be it could be a permeable material possibly. But when we talk about the Hudson River, it is so damaged. It's not a primeval wilderness. Everything along its length has been altered at one time or another, and yet the fish come back, the frogs come back. I really think it will withstand the depredations of the boardwalk if it takes place. Also,
Thank you.
oh, can I say one more thing? Okay.
We have David.
No.
No, I mean, you can continue speaking. The timer just,
I wasn't.
yeah, it wasn't completely on. If you'd like to finish your last few sentences, please.
Encore.
Okay, I'll just say one more thing, that I don't think people here understand the meaning of public park. This area belongs to New York State. It should serve the people of New York State. It's not the private playground of us Cold Springers, as much as we love it.
Thank you. David, Denherter.
Sure. Hi. Yeah, David Denherter. I'm a resident of Cold Spring at 18 Garden Street. I've been a New York State resident for something like a dozen years, both as a student and as a person in the real world. Most of that time in the city, actually. I just want to speak to the Riverwalk aspect of this. I grew up in a little town called Grand Haven, Michigan, which is a couple hours northeast of Chicago, which is relevant only insofar as it is on the mouth of the Grand River, which is the largest river in the state of Michigan. I was born in '79. In the '80s, the city undertook this project with the Army Corps of Engineers and local philanthropists to build this riverside linear park from the mouth of the Grand River, from the lighthouse, a couple miles upstream past the downtown. It was called the Lighthouse Connector Park, but we called it the Boardwalk. And I just want to say that it was the single best thing that probably ever happened to any kid that grew up in Grand Haven, Michigan. It is the source of my most enchanting and enduring memories. And when I heard about this project, I was just so excited about it. And so, I read the DGEIS, or, most of it, and certainly the executive summary. It makes reference to the comprehensive plan, which I thought I should go take a look at. And, obviously, reading through that, it occurred to me that the people who generated that comprehensive plan in 2014 are probably the reason that my wife and I first fell in love with this village when we first stayed overnight at Hudson House in like 2016, and started coming up here on the weekends. And then we eventually had a kid in the city and we moved up here, a little over a year ago. And so I just, I'll actually just quote from page 72 of this comprehensive plan because I thought it was pretty poignant. It says, this current plan is a call to action. If it is adopted and not implemented, it will have failed as surely as if it were never adopted at all. And the years this community has devoted to making it will have been wasted.
Martin?
John Martin, 63rd Street, down by Mayor's Park. I just had, two comments, having looked through the document. And one, it deals with impact on view shed. So that's DGEIS. And what is not in there, so I can't really comment on it, is what the structure will look like, the walkway, if you're standing in Mayor's Park or up by Little Stony Point or just before the rise going up to Duchess Manor, what the structure will look like. They give, specifications. They've ranged from 5 feet above the rail line to, that begins the walkway. And then from there up 8 feet to 11 feet for the train, for the fencing, which MTA requires, which there are other boardwalks that have been mentioned here today that don't necessarily buttress up against a train line that requires these higher fencing. And so what we haven't seen, although there was a quick photograph shown at Duchess Manor that was then quickly taken down of an artist's rendition of what it would look at sea level or 30 feet or 50 feet up. Now that'll go the entire length. And, for those who are at sea level or under 70 feet in height, they won't see the river except for through a structure. So absent the artist's rendition, I can't really say more than that, except for the specs they give. Now, there's other alternative specs they put in there that were different from what was said 2 years ago when they said 5 feet minimum for sea rise. And that is now 1 to 4 feet. That's in the DGEIS, but where does that range go? Where does that really leave you? So if you look at the basketball court down in Mayor's Park, you take 4.5 feet is where the rail line hits the stanchion for the basket. You take 5 feet above that, you're getting up to near 9 feet, 8.5 feet, and then you take 8 feet above fencing above there, and that's what you're going to see. So that's purely on the view shed issue. So I think that's important, and yet you can't really comment it because it's not in there. There's no artist rendition, so you don't know what it's going to look like. And the last thing I was going to simply say is the trail goes from Cold Spring to Beacon. Beacon and Cold Spring are completely different. Beacon's a city. Beacon has so many inroads, outroads to the train station. The trail will be ending down at on the river side of the train station. And then it's a half a mile or more walk to the closest part of Main Street and to all the little residences that go in and around buttress Main Street for probably a length of 2 miles, going north-south. So here in Cold Spring, topographically, we're restricted. We have 2 roads, 9D, 301. 301 is Main Street. On a busy summer weekend day, everybody knows how hard it is to cross Main Street. How the cars are just driving around looking for spots. That's already happening. Now, if you bring in, and for people coming up from New York or New Jersey, they're going to probably stop by Cold Spring first because it's closest, rather than go to Beacon. So what I'm saying is that these things have to be taken into consideration. There's a big difference between Beacon and Cold Spring. All right, thank you.
I'm going to just comment to that for 1 second, because I've read chapter 4, G and H about 4 or 5 times. I know it pretty well. What John said is absolutely accurate. There's John left. Okay. Sorry, you're absolutely right. So some parts in those chapters comment on the fence. So this is 4 feet of the trail, right? So they're giving maximum heights. The trail rising above the MNR tracks, the railroad tracks, up to 4 feet above the MNR tracks, plus 12 feet of fencing to 17 feet at, I think it's 117 Fair. It's the yellow house in the end. Forgive me if I've got the number of the house wrong. It's the end house. 17 feet. Not affected, it says not affecting the view shed. It'll have no effect on the view shed, right? It then says that, and it won't specify where the fence is going to be and how high things are going to be, but it says the range is going to be 4 feet, up to 4 feet and then up to 12 feet, all the way along, right? We think. So then then in another section of those parts of chapter 4, G and H, it's saying, talking about Mayor's Park, going, there's going to be no effect. And in fact, in their renderings, I have one here. This is from Little Stony Point, looking back across the lagoon you can't see, it's too far away for you, but looking back at the trail. It's got the trail here going, but there's no fence drawn in. There's no, on the DGEIS. It's like, there's no fence. Oops, no fence. So I'm just agreeing with you that it's very, very confusing. And I find much of the DGEIS that I read, which was GHIJ, incomplete. I mean, it's not complete. They didn't finish it.
Just one quick second question, if you don't mind. If you look at the photographs, then the projections of them, they're from high up on mountains, looking down to try and make everything look small and detailed. That's what's offered, not from any view along the Hudson River, from the east bank looking towards the river.
Thanks. We should get to the folks online, so we make sure we give everyone time here. All right, so we're gonna, we've hit everyone who's village resident in the room. We're gonna go to village residents online. If you're a village resident that's joining us online and would like to make comment, go ahead and use the raise hand button on your Zoom, or if you can't find it, you can just literally raise your hand and we'll try to figure it out. All right, looks like Irene is first.
Hi, Irene.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay, hi. Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for having this this public discussion. Is a lot of concern, and thank you also for acknowledging that it's a practice and discussion, public discussion, as opposed to being able to maybe make strict recommendations or however you phrase that. So my question to the planning board was also brought up by the parking meters. We were charging $4 an hour. That got handicapped by outrage of the village. So the village is seeming unable to agree to some type of problem solving that would create the sidewalks that would go down Fair Street, extend on 9D, and then yes, this boardwalk that would go along the river. Without the Fjord Trail involvement, there has been no problem solving from the village, and there's been no fever of problem solving from the residents of the village. I live at 6 Paulding. I think I was supposed to announce that. I'm sorry. So this village can create a sidewalk, can raise money to do that through parking meters, through raising taxes, through advocating for our town with Carmel and the state. I know they all hate us. So Cold Spring is either a victim in every situation or the bully. So I would like the planning board, I'm asking you, maybe you can propose as a planning board, understanding the rules and regulations as a planning board, what you can design, what world-class environmental architects are you going to employ to come up with your own research?
That's not our role, Irene.
I know. Our role here is to figure out some kind of compromise, a problem-solving compromise. I read parts of that report. I will not say I read that whole report. And I want to acknowledge everybody in that room. I live above the village a little bit, right? I'm across from like Food Town area. I'm over by there. So my concerns are very, very different than someone who lives on Fair Street and someone who lives below, on the side of the river. And everyone's concerns are valid. And I think it's fantastic that every public meeting, it should be discussed. I don't care how many meetings we have about it. Okay, because no one should feel shut out or bullied by whatever the prevailing idea is. So if the planning board doesn't have any sway in this area, but is willing to take the comments, are you hoping to create some kind of problem-solving agenda? Or if you're going to analyze the report and rightfully criticize the report, accurately criticize the report, that was apparently good enough for New York State to accept, what is it that you want to do with the report then? What is it that you want to do with the comments? Other than just hear us.
So I can clarify a little on just like the role of our comment in the DGEIS. So when a proposal gets put forth, right? Let's forget this current one. Any new developments being proposed, right? It goes in front of a variety of effective municipal boards that provide feedback. Is this, do we like what we see here? Are there things that should be done differently? Should you be considering things you didn't think about? Developers, even those that have the best interests and those altruistic motivations, they can only do so much to anticipate the needs of the people that they might be impacting. And so usually village government is there to represent the villagers and say, hey, you didn't think about this, you didn't think about Y, you didn't think about Z. And if you think about those things, it will make the project even better, right? And so the role that we have here, we're digesting this report, we're taking feedback from the public. Although unlike our usual position where we are a gate to a project proceeding here in the village, we're not a gate to this project proceeding. But the state has told Hudson Highlands, Your Trail, that they need to listen to us, at least insofar as we're impacted. We're Cold Spring is an impacted municipality, and we're one of the boards that in the best of circumstances, is being able to represent the needs of the village of Cold Spring back and saying, hey, here's some things that maybe you didn't think about, or things you missed, or things that you might consider that might help make this better. And so that's our role. I mean, with any proposal that comes before our board, our goal and our job is to help make it better for the village and for the developer. And that's what we're trying to do here.
Thank you. And again, I don't envy any of you. This is a difficult position, regardless of this project as it is. So again, thank you very much. And thank you for everyone listening to me. And I'll be quiet now.
Thanks, Irene.
Thanks, Irene.
Jesse, I have a quick question. So after comment is taken online,
Yep.
if someone has additional comment in the room,
we'll get back to second round comments if we have time after everyone's had a chance to speak. Okay. All right.
Dan Valentine.
So who we have next?
Go to so Dan Valentine.
I see, let's see here.
if you have any comment online, please raise your hand. Please use
I see Patricia D'Amato.
the function.
Patricia, I think you need to unmute. There you go.
Hi, I'm
Hi.
Patty D'Amato. I live at 13 Stone Street, which is the corner from Railroad Avenue and Stone Street. And I'd like to speak anecdotally. I'm happy that the planning board is looking into this, because I think that we can get wrapped up in the beauty of this idea, but the reality needs to be considered. I spoke to a girl in the produce section of Food Town who lives in Beacon. On a Saturday afternoon, it takes her 30 minutes to get from Food Town to the tunnel. When I read the DGEIS, it spoke about an increase in traffic, maybe 24 minutes, 24 seconds, 50 seconds. But that's on top of what's already here. Last October, I was walking to the pharmacy. The traffic extended all the way to Downey Oil, through the traffic light, past Haldane, and beyond. In the DGEIS, I read that we're a village of 2,000 people, but they're looking at an increase of 1,700 people per Saturday or Sunday in peak season. As we all discussed, most of them will come by car. I meet lots of people. I love the vibrancy of the visitors to our village. I've met many nice people, but the people who are coming, and I see their cars from New Jersey, Rockland County, Westchester County, and Connecticut, can't get here by mass transit. I know that there are 6 places, 6 means of entrance to the trail. But for all those people who want to get on with their strollers and their bicycles, they're going to come to Dockside. To go from Duchess Manor, when we had family events there and posed for pictures behind Duchess Manor, that's a hike down to where the trail is going to be. When we talk about people having road rage or anger, we had someone pull up on our sidewalk to pass another car who wasn't getting out of the way fast enough. Since COVID, we have multiple deliveries. There are trucks 7 days a week, and we're only going to increase this. I've seen tour buses stopping on Main Street to pick people up. We had a party van of about 30 people parked on side of our house, letting the people out there to get out, to walk around, and then the party van stayed there, just idling. I think there's a lot more, practically speaking, that needs to be considered, and I thank you for hearing our comments.
Thank you.
Thanks, Betty.
All right. The AJK 21, state your name and address, please.
Alice Krakauer. I live on East Mountain Road North in Phillipstown. Just regarding.
Alice, I'm sorry, one second. We're going through village residents first. We'll come back to you, I promise, okay?
No problem.
Any other village residents online?
Please use the function, the raise hand function, not physically raise your hand.
I don't see it, but okay.
Would you like to ask one more time?
Sure.
Well, not everybody is visible at once.
Well, not everyone has their cameras.
Yeah.
So we can't.
All right. Well, we can always, we'll have time. We'll come back. We've got, we'll come back to non-residents in the room. Heidi Wendell.
Thanks so much for hearing me. I live pretty close to Cold Spring in Nelsonville at 29 Seacoast Street, right across from the trailhead. And I have many concerns about the project. And I found that this board's comments at the January 27th hearing that's on YouTube to be very compelling. Many of the comments that you all made about the fuse shed, about the fence, and other and especially about the noise. I don't want to take your time to repeat, but I adopt those comments. My biggest concern about the project is the effects on the environment, and I thought Riverkeeper, in its the comments it submitted thus far to the public hearing that was held in January, really nicely described the problems with the project. I mean, piles in the Hudson are obviously terrible to the environment. It's amazing to me that any environmental group would think that it's okay to put piles in the Hudson that issue was addressed at the Westway in like decades ago. I remember the Westway discussions, piles in the huts. I thought that was over. As Riverkeeper said, the piles in the Hudson will disturb the communities of fish and wildlife, some of them protected. I also think, as Riverkeeper noted, just the influx of tons more visitors will badly affect wildlife here. I personally, about 10 years ago, saw a northern fence lizard on Bull Hill. I've been hiking here for decades, and I have noted that the heavy use of the trails has greatly reduced wildlife on Bull Hill. I think as a community, we should be protecting wildlife here in addition to parks should be protecting wildlife. I went hiking with my daughter this weekend and past weekend in Sam's Point. There are limitations on visitation to protect the wildlife and make sure it's actually a park and not just trampled area. They restrict visitor use of the park from April 15th through November 15th. And so you have to make a reservation. And I think that kind of system would protect our wildlife here. And the fact that Parks refuses to do it and instead is going to expand parking lots is very disturbing. We don't need another parking lot. We don't need more paved area for the reasons Riverkeeper expressed. The Washburn parking lot is already a blot on our environment here, and to tear up, have even more impermeable parking lot surface at Washburn instead of, as Riverkeeper notes, northern fence lizards is just wrong. And I would note it's wrong to the students. I work with the environmental club at the school. Their other name is the Habitat Revival Club. They're that's 40 kids that want to protect habitat for wildlife. That's what they care about, not about having, paved pathways and parking lots.
Thank you. And thank you for watching the video. I didn't.
It was actually, the first part though is a little difficult to hear, but if you force yourself to listen over and
The
over.
new venue, we got pushed up to the Butterfield Library.
Okay.
Normally, we're in this room.
Okay.
All right, back online. I think it was Alice. Alice, you're up. Sorry to make you wait.
Okay. A gentleman whose name you didn't catch, was talking about the visual impact of the trail of the.
My name's Ben Shear.
Sorry, what?
John Martin.
Oh, John in the room.
What's his name?
John Martin.
John Martin. Was talking about the visual impact of the boardwalk, which will, as he said, be between 1 and 4 feet above the train level, with a fence on top of that between 8 and 12 feet high, I believe the DGEIS says. And he referenced slides that were shown at Duchess Manor at the meeting on, I believe it was March 11th, which was the Alternative Routes meeting. I dug up those pictures, and anyone can find them. They're on the HHFT's website. You go into the trail videos, and it's not on that video page, but it says you're interested in the videos of presentations. And when you go to that link, they have all the slides on the side of where, the videos on the right, and all the slides that were shown are on the left. There are 4 slides that show, they better show the effect on the view shed than what's in the DGEIS. There's one from Fair Street at Mayor's Park. There's one from Little Stony Point. There are 4 of them. And, they're like slides 107 to 8, 9, 10, something like that. But they're all down on the left. You can just scroll down. That's all I wanted to say. Thank you.
Thank you. It's very useful. Do we have any non-residents or anyone else who would like to make comment?
One from Kathy G. Give me 1 second, Kathy.
Oh, hi Kathy. All right, we missed you.
Kathy G, I'm gonna ask you to unmute, okay?
Kathy, can you unmute? We should be able to hear you.
You're muted, Kathy.
Click that or?
All right, Kathy, well, if we can't figure out how to get you unmuted, you, please submit your comments in writing. We'll make sure to incorporate them into our thinking. But also if you are able to unmute, you can just say, hey. Okay, so it sounds like we are mostly done with, people giving comment. Would you like to make
I
another
just wanted
comment?
to, Irene had mentioned that, the Fair Street. And as of last night, the village board had a meeting and they're starting a project that is going to address those sidewalks. And they'll be putting them in. So the village is on top of that. I thought you'd want to know.
Yeah, it's a very sad loss of some trees, I think, unfortunately, but you know, it is what it is.
Oh, why are they going to fix it?
I think they're just resurfacing them, right?
Resurfacing.
There's a stormwater issue.
Yeah. Okay, Kathy, any luck?
If I can.
All right, Kathy, welcome back. Any luck about unmuting?
Unmute. Hello?
Yes, there we go.
Hi, how are you? It's Jennifer. How's everybody?
Hey.
Hi.
It's all very interesting discussion. I was thinking, I've had the fortune to travel to some great places like Cape May, New Jersey, Provincetown, Massachusetts, Telluride, Colorado. I think one of the points that nobody's making is that these are all great points about the environment and access to recreation. As I sit here and the more I hear about this trail, the thing that I believe we need to think about is what we're losing the most is any illusion or delusion that we will remain a small town in the Hudson Valley. Cape May, New Jersey is run like a corporation. Telluride, Colorado is a corporation. We will be losing that. We all love Central Park. It's one of my favorite places in the world. But they do not delude themselves that they're a small town. And if we're going to add 20,000 people to this town every weekend, we have to give up the illusion that we're a small town. And how are we going to plan how we're going to run this town going forward? Because we're not going to be able to run this town on a shoestring budget with the low taxes that we enjoy. Either this town is going to be subsidized by the state, the Hudson Highlands Fjord Trail, or us, the taxpayers. We live right on Fair Street, on 5 Fair Street. We could make movies on Sunday about cars driving the wrong way. We're going to explain to people you can't drive down Fair Street with a plastic sawhorse with a sign that says road closed when people can clearly see the road is not closed. They see a double yellow line, they see traffic. That is a conversation we need to have maybe aside of the DGEIS meeting, but it does dovetail into this, is how are we going to govern ourselves as a town once this fjord trail does come here? And that's all I have to say about that. So for your consideration.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Any other comments online or in the room?
I'd just like to ask about that 12-foot fence. Why is the fence not going on alongside the train track? Why would it have to be on the boardwalk? I mean, clearly there are many unfenced boardwalks in existence. Why is seems like an obnoxious part of that plan, but
This
is
is
it
gonna be-
absolutely necessary?
Okay.
My understanding is that it's a requirement from Metro North to protect people from jumping onto the tracks.
Well, can't that be on the side of their tracks and not in the middle of the river?
It's probably materially gonna be the same thing, but I don't understand. I'm not gonna speak to it because I don't understand what they're.
So Metro North wants 25 feet from the center of the track as a right of way. So that puts it over the water. So that's where they want the fence, is 25 feet away from the track. And it's over the water.
Just because they want it, does that mean they have to have it?
Well, they are the trained people.
Yeah,
President Trump has a lot of ideas about things that he wants to have too, but you know.
They are the trained people.
Yeah, the trained people.
They own a corridor.
Yeah.
This is Jennifer, if I may. I'll speak as the unofficial train person. This section of track from Cold Spring Station to Beacon is the fastest section of train track in the United States outside of the Boston to Washington corridor.
Wow.
The speed is 80 miles per hour. Stuff flying off these trains are things that we hit in the right of way, whether they be deer or geese. It is a very dangerous environment for people to come in. When we operate the trains out there, whether it's down in the Bronx or up in Poughkeepsie and New Hamburg, we're constantly reporting trespassers walking along the right of way, not because we don't want people on our property, but it is a dangerous environment for people to be within X amount of feet of trains doing this speed.
Thank you.
You're
Looks like we have another hand raised, OIC M. Jackson.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. How's everybody doing
Say your
tonight?
name and address.
I'm getting there. My name's Matthew Jackson. I'm the officer in charge in the village of Cold Spring. I do not live in the village, but I do work there. My job as officer in charge is to ensure the safety and well-being of not only the residents of Cold Spring, but also the visitors as well. After reviewing the DGEIS presentation, I noticed a common trend with all emergency services located within the southern section of the proposed trail. And that trend is the strain on those responding agencies. Police, fire, and EMS have all expressed concerns that the implementation of this proposed trail will not only put a strain on these departments, but also impact the residents of Cold Spring by depriving them of these emergency services should a situation arise on the trail. There is a lack of information provided to emergency services by HHFT. A meeting of the lead agencies and officials from HHFT would be greatly appreciated. There's a lot of things to note in there. The response time of outside agencies. The closest agency to an emergency would be the Village of Cold Spring Police Department. I'm going to say our maximum response time is similar to the fire department, about 10 minutes. But realistically, we are the closest responding police agency to be the first to respond to an emergency. You know, we would be impacted the most. Currently, there's no formal structure to an emergency response plan. You know, I am definitely willing to sit down with everybody, along with other local agencies that will be affected by the construction of this trail, in order to draft some sort of emergency plan. You know, we're working with limited resources as it is, and increasing the number of visitors already puts a strain on us during the busy season, which is like April and extends through November. I think that these things have been overlooked, and they need to be addressed. All the agencies in the area have indicated that there will be a strain on these resources, but I haven't heard anything on how it's going to be mitigated with the additional strain of not only traffic and people. And that's all I have.
Thank you.
Officer Jackson, I've got a question for you. So
Yes, sir.
falls under our ambit. Has HHFT or state parks reached out to you about an offer of resources or a questioning?
Absolutely not. Nothing.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Any other questions or comments online? Okay. I'd like to make a motion to close the public comment.
I will make a motion to close public comment and DGEIS.
Can I say one more thing? I know I was talking too much, but it seems to me there's a fallacy here that when the trail is built, many more people will come here. You don't seem to realize there are other places in New York to go to. There's Harriman Park, there's New Paltz, there's the Adirondacks, well, there's a huge number of places to go to, and not everyone in the world wants to hike. Most people would rather go maybe to a museum or a ballpark. The idea that the whole world will be descending here seems to be a fallacy. It's very possible that when this project first opens, a great many people will come because they want to be the first person there. But, New York handles the High Line, which is much more limited space without people falling off the edge. I don't see that this would be such a draw that it would utterly destroy our village.
Thank you.
If you close the public comment, we can still write in comments.
Yes.
We welcome that. We welcome further comment.
Thank you.
Sooner the better. Thank you, everyone. This is amazing. Like, this is really productive, and it's great to hear everyone's thoughts on this.
I'm gonna make a motion to close the public comment on the public hearing on the Ford Trail DGEIS for February 6th.
Second.
All in favor? Aye. I'd like to make one comment maybe before people leave. Okay.
Excuse me, we're still in meeting here.
Still in session here, guys. So I want to make one comment before we go, just as a little bit of parting, something for everyone to think about, regardless of how you feel about the project. A lot of people today have cited various projects that they experienced, public works projects that they felt like resulted in great benefit. I was a part of a river town growing up that had a magnificent river walk put in. But I want to point out that I would guess that the vast majority, if not all of those projects, were done in close cooperation with the municipalities they impacted. And that the result is not just a function of what came in, not just the developer's initial vision, but it was the result of an invested public, an invested set of municipal boards working in concert with the developers to make something that was going to work for everyone in that community. Something to think about. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Have a good night, guys. You guys deserve that.
Resting on the
Federal chat. Yeah, it's coming. It's slowing us down.
I thought you were asking us to.
Close the hearing, haven't adjourned it. But all in favor?
Okay, cool. Okay, guys, have a great night. Thank you.
Yeah. Huh? You're funding the party.